But that could change if things were to shake up in Saudi Arabia. Instability in Saudi Arabia would mean that oil prices would not just rise, but could double. So that's the country we need to look at as closely as we can. We do so now through the eyes of perhaps the most famous Saudi Arabian in the world. Our guest is one of the most successful investors on the planet, the 26th richest man in the world, according to Forbes. He is the biggest foreign investor in the United States, and he is also a prince, a grandson of the founding king of Saudi Arabia. He is Prince Al-Waleed bin Talal bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. Al-Waleed straddles the worlds of America and Saudi Arabia, two worlds that need each other but barely seem to understand each other. So we are going to try to bridge that gap. Prince Al-Waleed, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be with you, my friend, Fareed.
So let's start with the question everybody has on their mind. You are a prince of Saudi Arabia. How stable is Saudi Arabia? You see the sea of revolution taking place across the Middle East. And it seems the one country that has not been particularly affected is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, thanks God. Saudi Arabia really is a very unique situation. The relation between the king and his people is very close. People love their king a lot. That's one reason, obviously, for not having any civil disturbances over there. Plus, the Saudi Arabia situation, although economically we're not in A1 shape for sure, we have issues like another country, but for sure the situation is not dire and deep and bad. So all these reasons really help in explaining to you that why Saudi Arabia's situation is stable, and thanks God, you know, the latest call to demonstrate failed completely in Saudi Arabia.
But tell me a little bit about the tensions in the country, because clearly the king and the royal family is worried. When these revolutions began in the Middle East, the Saudi government effectively wrote a check for $40 billion. $40 billion is a lot of money, even for Saudi Arabia. So there are concerns that people feel a certain level of a lack of openness, a lack of freedom, a lack of progress. Do you think that this current system can provide that, or does there need to be significant progress in the next year or two?
You know Lee Kuan Yew, I mean, you know him very well, he's a very famous man. He's the man who established modern Singapore. And Singapore is a model country in democracy in the Far East. He was having lunch with me one time and I asked him, what kind of democracy you have there? I said, we have our own democracy, Prince. It's not the US type democracy. So what he meant by that is that we have a system whereby the participation of the people has to be implemented. And I believe that Saudi Arabia will have to enact some new laws whereby the participation of the people has to be done one way or another.
What about the relationship of the Saudi royal family to the religious establishment? Ever since the taking of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, the Saudi royal family seemed to get into a deal where they ceded very important parts of the kingdom, education, religious affairs, to fairly radical Wahhabi preachers, because they felt that this would ensure there was no challenge to the monarchy. My sense is over the last 5-7 years, there has been a turn where it was recognized that this was not such a good idea. What can you tell us about that?
Clearly, last 6, 7, 8 years, Saudi Arabia began changing and reforming. Clearly and unfortunately, there are some Saudis who are really extreme, but they shout and scream very loudly, and the West thinks, oops, these are the representatives of the religious community and mainstream Saudi Arabia, which is not the case. But as you have rightly said so, that the last 5, 6, 7 years, the king has been trying to neutralize them and get them off the system so they don't get Saudi Arabia off track.
Is it succeeding? Are these forces declining in importance?
It's succeeding, but slowly. You and I would like this to be expedited. And I think right now, the king, you say, almost on weekly basis, not monthly basis, some of these people are being really sidestepped. So really, you know, for example, Saudi Arabia never had a university whereby women and men could be together. King Abdullah established that. And some of them were against that. So, and he axed them out. So slowly but surely it's happening.
There are lots of people who, when they think of Saudi Arabia, they think of the support for very extreme Islamic preachers, Islamic centers, Islamic movements, and terrorists. And there's a lot of documentation that says that money did come from Saudi Arabia, not always the Saudi government, in fact, very often not the Saudi government, but Saudi individuals. And I was in Cairo, and the people in Egypt said that their Salafists, their most extreme religious people, are all funded from Saudi Arabia. When will this stop?
This problem was there actually. But the Saudi Arabian government official position is really not to do that, not to support those people at all. We acknowledge the fact that there were some Saudis who were supporting some of those groups that turned to be terrorists. I mean, when they were supported, the assumption was that these were not terrorists. They were just only Islamic jihadists or advancing the cause of Islam. But clearly, when this turned out to be not the case, Saudi Arabia imposed very strong conditions.
And yet, when I'd go to Iraq during the war, and we'd try to figure out who was funding the most extreme Sunni militants, Al-Qaeda affiliated organizations, what we would hear is that the money was coming in from Saudi Arabia.
I think this is a bit old news in history. I can assure you, Fareed, right now, the situation changed a lot. I mean, because we were the victim of many terrorist acts. My own center, my kingdom center, which is the highest rise tower in Saudi Arabia, was vacated twice because of terrorist acts. Or at least terrorist threats. I remember also last November when Saudi Arabia gave a tip to US government whereby 2 planes were saved from being bombed by these two bombs that were supposed to explode in midair. So rest assured that Saudi Arabia today is a lot different than it was 5-6 years ago.
Given your financial prowess, I have to ask you questions about oil because, of course, Saudi Arabia is the central banker of oil. Explain to me why the price of oil is now averaging over $100 a barrel for the year. You don't have a substantial increase in demand right now. If you look at China, India, the United States, Europe, growth is actually not as strong as it could have been everywhere. You don't have a particular disruption of supply. There was a little bit because of Libya, but very, very tiny. And you guys, I mean, the Saudis actually increased supply, but then they cut back because they pointed out nobody wanted to buy this extra supply. So if you don't have increased demand, if you don't have reduced supply, why did the price go up 30–40%?
Fareed, you asked a question, you answered it also. You're too smart. No doubt the price of oil was hovering around 85. It jumped to 100 after what happened in Libya and Bahrain. Now, clearly, there's still some fear factor, and there is also a speculation factor. Inevitably, when Bahrain is now stable, but still, they're not 100% sure what's going to happen because you hear once in a while Iran coming and jumping and antagonizing and intimidating the Gulf region. So there's a worry.
But if fundamentals are in one place and speculation takes the price higher, ultimately the speculation will fail, right? I mean, the price wouldn't.
It should.
So do you think prices will come down?
The state position of Saudi Arabia, we want the price to be between 70 and 80, not only to help the West, but also to help ourselves. We don't want the West to go and find alternatives, because clearly the higher price of oil goes, the more you have incentive to go and find alternatives. So really, our interest coincides with American interest, to have the price for around 70, 80, which is the price good for consumers and producers.
So let's talk a little bit about the economy, the global economy. You're one of the most successful investors in the world. Would you continue to, you're still investing in America?
Oh, for sure, we continue, because I mean, it's a risk reward. Clearly, the United States has a stable political system, has due process, has stability, you know exactly where you're heading. Inevitably, when you go third world countries, you have more rewards, but also more risks. I believe in the United States, at the end of the day, the United States is down for sure, but it's not out.
Now, let me ask you, this new process of electing a new king of Saudi Arabia, is it conceivable that the council will look around and say, well, the most qualified man in Saudi Arabia is clearly Prince Al-Waleed?
You know, in Saudi Arabia, there's a body of 40 people, 34 people exactly, that once the succession comes, they will meet and they will elect a king. There. I will always serve my country in any capacity, but I'm very happy with what I'm doing right now.
All right. Well, if by some chance you were to become the king of Saudi Arabia, I'm going to insist that you come and do an interview, though, of course, in that case, we will go to Riyadh to see you.
I will come to you anyway, my friend Fareed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will be right back.
My sense is we erred. We kept the interest rate